Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am pretty stoked. I know that there's a lot of doom and gloom out there about the current state of the housing market, and especially in relation to affordability. And I've detailed in other videos on the channel. We definitely need to address there's large concerns that need to be rectified and problems to solve. But one thing that does get me excited is we're not in the same market that we were in 2021 and 2022 in the peak of the pandemic, where if you were looking to purchase property, you had to pretty much, from like a negotiation perspective, cut off your leg and give your firstborn child to the seller in order to get the house that you wanted, right? And you had to do that also within about an hour's time frame. So we're not in that kind of situation anymore. And with the shift in the market that's been going on over the past couple months, in the back half of this past year, I just wanted to go over some opportunities that now exist and some things that you can take advantage of if you are looking to purchase a property here at the end of 2025 and going into 2026. This is taking into account that there's some different types of programs, things to consider, and different levers of negotiation that are now possible that weren't in when we were talking about, again, like the peak of the pandemic when things were all kinds of craziness. So I just wanted to go over what some of those opportunities are and then kind of give you like a mock case study example. And we'll kind of go line by line on different types of cost savings whenever you factor in a couple different opportunities. So first and foremost, what I wanted to talk to you about is if we're already at the place where we're seeking financing, right? I'm assuming for the context of this video, I'm assuming that you're probably a first-time home buyer. Even if you're not a first-time home buyer and maybe you're coming back to the market after some time, there are what are considered down payment assistance opportunities. Now, within that realm, there's a couple of different buckets. There are just straight up grants. Grants, like if you think about it from like when you were going to college, for example, a grant could be just something where you are getting an allotment of money and there is no strings attached. It is something that is being provided typically there's like different state programs. There's also city programs. So like the city of Cincinnati has a program for this. Also, some lenders just offer this as another means and, call it opportunity for first-time home buyers to get some assistance in the down payment realm. Typically, this could be anywhere from like $5,000 to $10,000. I've never seen a program with more than $10,000, but between 5 and 10 is what I've seen most commonly. But that would be what's called the grant bucket. There's also what are called forgivable loans. So usually those are the same $5,000 to $10,000 mark. What it's typically going to be in this bucket is that it's going to be presented as a forgivable loan, meaning that after a certain period of time, that loan will be erased. So let's say, for example, you bought the house. Most of them, for example, will be that, hey, after 5 years of you living in the house, that loan would fall off and you would no longer be obligated to have to pay off that loan whenever you would go to, for example, sell the house. Now, the way in which you would pay it off as a loan if you did not have it forgiven is if you were living in the house for, let's say, 2 to 3 years, or it's not been the completion of time for it to fall off. At that point, if you were to, for example, sell the property, you at that point would pay out that balance at the time of closing. It's not something that you're paying on a monthly basis. It's something that's paid out at the time of you selling the property. Again, if you don't have that forgiven. So that's kind of the second bucket. And then the third bucket is truly just it's not forgivable, and it's truly just something that it's paid out at the time of closing. So there's no forgiveness attached to it. It's purely just when you go to sell the property, you will have that paid off at the time, deducted from your proceeds at the time of closing. So that's kind of one thing to consider is the down payment assistance realms, right? And I'm happy to help you with getting in touch with some folks who might be able to look at getting you plugged into those types of programs. But that's just something to consider, right? If you are struggling with getting the savings required to get into the property, let's take a look at this for you. This might be something that we can get you into. A couple other things to consider, and I'm going to pull up my screen here shortly and share with you kind of a mock case study of some different things you can consider when you're going out and you're actually home searching and then you're doing the negotiations on the purchase of the property. I think a lot of times people approach things from the perspective of, hey, I see a house, it's been listed for a little bit. I want to go in there and I want to ask for a certain amount off of the purchase price. I think that's totally fair and valid, and that makes sense because ultimately it's an agreement that both you and the seller are reaching. But at the same time, I think if you're a little bit more strategic in your approach, there's some things you could consider. I'm going to pull up an example of a first-time home buyer who goes that traditional route. They're going to be approaching it from a financed buyer. I'm going to be doing 3.5% down, and I'm going to approach the seller from the perspective of asking for a certain amount off of the purchase price and just kind of keeping things flat like that. And then I'm also going to detail another scenario where you could take advantage of some creative loan options. One of those would be what we would consider an ARM, which is an adjustable rate mortgage. And if that already made your hair stand up on the back of your neck, please, don't worry, calm down. It's not like I'm referring to what we had back in 2006 and 7 and 8 and caused the Great Recession. I'm referring to some more, they're stricter programs now. But what I'm specifically going to be detailing in this scenario is what we call a 5-to-1 ARM. A 5-to-1 ARM is that for the first 5 years of the loan is a fixed amount. That interest rate doesn't go up or down. It is fixed to what that loan term details for that first 5 years. Typically, these are actually lower than what the standard call it market rate is going to be on those 30-year fixed options. You are going to have a lower interest rate than you would if you were looking at something in a more traditional 30-year term. So I'm going to detail what that might look like for you. And then also from the perspective of rather than just asking money off of the purchase price, what if we looked at something like doing a 2-to-1 buy down on that interest rate? So not to get too into the weeds on this, but just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview, instead of asking for just money off the top of the purchase price, what you can do instead is ask for the same amount of money as terms of a concession from a seller, and you can use that money to buy down your interest rate. A 2-to-1 buy down actually says that in that first year, you actually pay down that interest rate 2 full, what they call points or percentages. So for example, in this scenario that I'm going to pull up here, if we were to be at a 5.5% 5-to-1 ARM, if you were to do a 2-to-1 rate buy down, that first year, your interest rate would actually be 3.5%. And then the second year, when they come the term 2-to-1, it goes up to 1%. So it would go to 4.5%. And then that third year and beyond, it will go back to the call it regular or the normal amount for the duration of the rest of that loan. In the ARM scenario, basically, it'll be that next 2-year period, years 3, 4, and 5, where it will go back to what that call it normal rate is that you were expecting from the get-go. But let me show you this example here, and I think this might make a little bit more sense. But ultimately, the way to think about this is this could be a really great way to save a ton of money on the front end, bringing less money to closing, and ultimately save money on a monthly basis. And then also from just the loan balance perspective, it actually puts you in a pretty good spot here. So let me just show this to you here, and we'll talk through it in real time. All right, so I have a mock case study here. I have a first-time home buyer couple. John and Ashley are looking at a home listed at $305,000. Both the buyer and the seller are deciding between 2 different negotiation strategies, each that costs the seller $7,500. The first option is what's most traditional and what most people go to right off the bat. Hey, I'm going to ask for a reduction in the purchase price of $7,500. Okay, so that new purchase price becomes $2,500. Assuming that you're doing a 3.5% first-time home buyer down payment, you're bringing about $10,400 to the table just as far as your down payment goes. At an estimated rate of about 6%, thereabouts, you could find that in the marketplace right now. The loan payment would be about $1,720 per month with just that principal and interest. Over the course of 5 years, you're paying about $103,000 in principal and interest, and you pay down about $17,000 in principal over that time, and you have a loan balance of about $270,000 after that 5-year time frame. Just something to keep in mind, though, that $7,500 price drop only lowers your monthly payment by about $46 a month. So it's really not a huge difference. If we're being honest with ourselves here, that's like 2 subscriptions these days. So it's really not even that big of an amount. But let's go to option B here, the more creative solution here. So let's say we kept the purchase price the same, $305,000, but the seller pays $7,500 to fund a 2-to-1 rate buy down on a 5.5% adjustable rate mortgage. John and Ashley also qualify for a $10,000 down payment grant, so their 3.5% down payment is almost entirely covered. That would mean the down payment goes from that $10,400 to about $675. How about that? Then let's get into the actual monthly payment numbers. So year one, with the rate buy down in that 5-to-1 arm, year one, we're looking at about $1,321 per month. So just remember, that's about $400 in monthly savings right here. Again, scenario one, $1,720 per month versus $1,321 per month in that first year. That second year, like I said, it would jump up to that 4.5% and comes out to about $1,493 per month. So again, you're still saving over $200 per month on that second year's loan payment. Years 3 through 5, it goes to what the ARM, the traditional rate is going to be, which is about $1,672 per month. So again, just to go back up here, we're looking at $1,720 per month in a more standard, conventional, or traditional place, versus with the ARM, we're looking at about $1,672 per month. So you're still saving, it's not a huge amount of money, but you're still saving some money coupled with what we had going on in those first 2 years of your loan. And also just note that you're paying more principal because that interest rate is lower, right? So over the course of that 5 years, they'd pay about $93,960, which is a savings of about $9,240 compared to the price drop scenario. Even though in the scenario A, the house was $7,500 less. As I mentioned, you pay more principal early. So you're paying about $22,000 in principal compared to about $17,000 in scenario A. And the loan balance is roughly about $272,000, which is almost the same as that $270,000 here, even though the purchase price was higher. And you saved way more cash out of pocket with your down payment and that monthly savings. So again, let's just take a look at here. This is a quick summary. So if we were to do just the standard price reduction, you save about $46 per month. You still have to have that $10,000 plus in down payment, and it only saves you about $2,700 over 5 years. If we did the buy down with an ARM plus a grant, save about $400 a month in year one. It saves you $227 a month in year two. You're still cheaper than the fixed rate, years 3 through 5, and you save about $9,200 over that 5-year period. And it's cutting your down payment from $10,000 to about $600 and almost $700. So here's the thing to consider, and you might be asking yourself, well, what the heck is this 2-to-1 buy down? How does this happen? How does this work? That savings, that $400 a month here, what the lender does is they actually run the calculation. So you actually would multiply $400 times 12 and then $227 times 12. And those things coupled together is what you're asking for in that concession from the seller. So that's exactly why I have on here $7,500. That's where that number is coming from. There are a lot of different ways in which we can be creative and save you on the monthly payment side of things and also on the down payment assistance level of things. Don't feel as though you have to go the more traditional route and get stuck in a place where you can't quite get to a place where you can save that amount for your down payment while you're currently renting and or living at home, whatever the case may be. So I'd love to talk through these things with you. I am also, just so that way you know, and to be a value add and service to you, I am currently going through my classes to get my loan officer license as well. So here by the end of the year 2025, I'll be dual licensed. So I'll be able to help you in the purchase of your property, and not just on the purchase side of it as a real estate agent, but also as the loan officer side of things, and be able to help you through these numbers and through these calculations so I can help you on the cost saving side of things too. So I'm very excited about that. I will share more on that whenever I get past the test, but I got to get through, got to jump over all the hurdles and the obstacles, right? But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on talking through something like this. I just want to be of help and resource to you. Feel free to email me. My email will be in the description, as well as my phone number. Both of them will be available to you. My email is trevor1@kw.com. I'd love to connect with you. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you all here soon. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday.